everybody. Welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show, a playoff edition as the 2022 postseason gets underway this week. And we've got 4 teams gearing up for the AHSAA playoffs this Friday night. And beyond that, we've also got 2 other matchups taking place this week. We've got the ACSC State Championship taking place at Evangel on Friday night, and then beyond that, we've got the Cornerstone Chargers opening up the AISA playoffs in the 8-man region. So a busy Friday night of playoff football coming up as we've got a total of 6 teams playing in the postseason starting this week. So a busy night to get to this week and a lot to touch on. Our game of the week going to take place here at Vincent High School. The Yellow Jackets into the playoffs with home field advantage for the first time since 2011. We're going to talk plenty about that game as they play host to Laverne this Friday night, and a big opportunity for the Yellow Jackets in that football game. But beyond that, the Thompson Warriors also playing at home. They host Huntsville, the Pelham Panthers at home, and a very intriguing matchup against Northridge to open the playoffs. A lot of very interesting storylines going into that game. We'll talk about that as well. And then the Calera Eagles going to be hitting the road to take on a top 5 team in Hillcrest, Tuscaloosa, an undefeated 10-0 team going into the postseason. So a big challenge ahead for the Eagles, but they're going to be ready for a battle, and we're going to talk about what they can do to compete in that game as well. So a ton to get to, a ton to talk about, a lot of excitement as we gear up for the postseason. It's win or go home now, and we're going to break it all down on this week's Shelby County High School Football Show, and we're going to start right here with our game of the week at Vincent High School. The last time the Vincent Yellow Jackets hosted a home playoff game, that came more than 10 years ago. Back in 2011, Zeb Ellison, now the head coach at Shelby County High School, was the coach here at Vincent when that happened. And now you fast forward 11 years later, and the Yellow Jackets back on their home field looking for a postseason win. Last time they were in this situation of hosting a home field game in the first round of the playoffs, they picked up a win back in 2011. Going to have a very good chance to do so again this season. But more than that, this is one of the most historic Vincent football teams in school history. You look at what they've been able to do this season, and one of the best seasons in the regular season, I believe the best regular season in school history at 9-1. The last couple of times that they've gotten 9 wins, they've had to do it in the first round of the playoffs. But this week, going into this matchup, not only playing a home football game in the playoffs for the first time in 11 years, but a chance to win 10 games in a season for the first time in school history. So a lot on the line in this matchup, a chance for these kids to make history and to see where they've come from the last several years. Head coach Lucas Weatherford and what he's been doing here with Vincent to try to get this program back into good shape. Not just that, but to get these players to believe that they can win these kind of football games. And boy, this year has that paid off. And now you've got a group of kids with a chance to make history, really already have made history. Everything else from here on out is bonus material. So you look at that and the opportunity that they have ahead this week. There's so much excitement. And regardless of the outcome on Friday night, to have that kind of excitement around this program right now going into this game, the kids are amped up. They're excited to get out here and play in this one. And the community as well, just to surround this football team with the opportunity that these young men have on Friday night. It's going to be special to see throughout this entire week, but when they take this field behind me on Friday as well. So plenty of excitement building around this game. And when you look at the matchup head-to-head on the field, Vincent should be the favorite going into this game. I say that simply because of how they've performed and played for the majority of the season, but Laverne is a very, very tough football team. They're sitting at 6-4, and yes, you've got Vincent at 9-1 overall this season. They've had such a successful season, but Laverne sitting at 6-4, they've played in a very difficult region with some tough opponents there, and they've played some good football. The offense there of Laverne scoring about 26 points per game so far this season. and they're giving up defensively 19.4 points per game, and that's going to be the key for them. They're going to have to play well defensively in this game because Vincent, they've got a very good defense. They've been the best they've been on that side of the ball in several years. And when you look at what Laverne struggled with, it's been that offensive side of the football, scoring 26 points per game. So you look at that. If Vincent comes out, plays what we expect them to do defensively, then Laverne's going to struggle to score a ton of points in this game. You're going to have to rely on your defense, which has been successful throughout the season, to pair up against this challenging Vincent offense to make some big-time plays. And that's going to be the key for Laverne going into this game, playing well on the defensive side of the football. I think they're going to have some success in this game. Vincent's going to have to come out ready to roll early in the football game. You don't want to fall behind in the playoffs and let any doubt start to creep in. We've seen a couple of times where that's been the case, where they've struggled early in the game and then been able to pull away in the second half. But that's the positive for this year's team compared to what we've seen in the last several years. This year's team, if they start slow, they're able to bounce back. If they start fast, there may be a hiccup or two in the second half, but they're able to finish football games. And that's something that we haven't been able to say the last couple of years. They would fight for a half or for three quarters, and then they would start to lose it because they're having to play so many guys on both sides of the field. But you look at what they've been able to do this season. They have finished football games, all aside from one game, that 36-35 loss to BB Comer in a top 10 battle between those two teams earlier this season. So their lone loss of the season by 1 point in a game that they led throughout, and then just ultimately a 2-point conversion at the end there makes the difference in that football game. So this is a team, you look at that football game, that should be the entire motivating factor for this team to want to finish football games in the second half, and that's going to be important in this game because it could be a tight football game, even though Vincent should have the upper hand just looking at the statistics going into this game, and in particular, what they've been able to do on the offensive side of the football, scoring 47.7 points per game on that side of the football. But the defense this year has been so impressive to give up 14.6 points per game. You've got a unit full of guys that are playing really on both sides of the ball a lot of the time as well. And to go out there and do that, that shows the buy-in and commitment to not just be successful as a team, but to be successful on both sides of the ball and try to make a difference in each and every game. That's been the case so far this season for Vincent, and when you look at that, they're bought in fully on both sides of the ball. The coaching staff has bought into the players bought into the coaching staff. It's just all around working well for the Vincent Yellow Jackets this year. That, in my opinion, is something that continues this week. When you've got a team that's scoring 20 more points per game, giving up 5 less points per game, it's tough to see Laverne coming in here picking up a win unless Vincent's just not ready to go from the start of this football game. I don't expect that to be the case. This is one of the most exciting opportunities this team has had in a long time. As long as they can stay focused on the game plan, not let the outside noise come in, the jitters come in, then they're going to be just fine going into this football game because of that excitement and the opportunity that they do have. So going to be a lot of fun out here this week for the Vincent Yellow Jackets. A chance at school history, a chance to win a playoff game on their home field. That's all you need to really say going into this matchup. Going to be a heck of a football game between these two teams, but you got to expect Vincent's going to have that fight yet again, that edge, that determination to pick up a very historic 10th win against Laverne this week. Several more games to get to, and we start with the 3-time defending 7A champions, the Thompson Warriors, as they kick off the postseason this week against Huntsville at home at Warrior Stadium. And for the Thompson Warriors, it's pretty simple. The defense is good enough to win a state championship. It's arguably the best defense in the state this season. They're going to be ready to go each and every week. They give you a chance to win every football game and to compete for a state championship. But for the other side of the ball, it's got to improve, and they know that. That's no secret right now. Coming off that 9-0 shutout loss to Hoover, their first shutout since the 2016 season, the Thompson Warriors on the offensive side of the football, and that's just not something we've seen the last couple of years. This is a team that's been scoring 40-plus points per game the last several years, en route to 4 consecutive state championship appearances and 3 state titles in a row. So now looking to get to their 5th championship in a row and win their 4th championship in a row, they're going to have to improve on the offensive side of the ball. You look at Thompson on that side this so far this season, scoring 26.9 points per game, and that's just not nearly what they've become accustomed to the last several years. And there's many reasons for those struggles on that side of the ball. They faced some injuries up front on the offensive line, some inconsistencies there, but they've also lost, arguably the most talent of any team in the state going into this season. You look at what they lost on the offensive side. You lose a quarterback who was a 2-year starter and very successful in Connor Harrell. You look beyond that, Ryan Pepin's Mr. Football last year, could do just about everything in the receiving game, could even make some plays running the football. One of the best and most talented athletes in the country a year ago. And then you lose two other receivers that were extremely talented. You lose your top 2 running backs who were talented as well. So you lose about 90% of your production, if not more, from a season ago. The offensive line was supposed to be kind of the highlight this year to help some of those young guys suit up and be ready to go at some of the other skill positions, but injuries and some inconsistencies there have also piled up. So you look at all that together, and it's been a pretty dang good year for Thompson this year to be in the situation that they're in. They lose those 2 games to start the season to 2 of the best teams in the country. Their only other loss since then came in their last outing against Hoover, 9-0, and they were inside the 25-yard line several times, inside the 10-yard line a couple of times as well, with chances to win that football game. They just haven't been able to convert on the offensive side when they needed to. This week, that's got to be this week has to be the start to a new transition and a new offense for the Warriors as they start this new season. And this is a new season for them. Once they hit the postseason, they are a different football team, and that's been the case the last several years. They build off of the mistakes. They learn from the mistakes that they've made through the regular season, and the last couple years they've had a bye week going into the playoffs to really fine-tune things and prepare for what they want to do over the next several weeks as they vie for another state championship. So that, to me, is a huge plus and bonus for this team going into the postseason. You got to expect that the offense is going to improve, which is so dangerous to think about when you've got the defense that they have and what they've been able to do on that side of the ball this season. But they're going to have to start to prove that offense can make those big-time plays the rest of the way, and this is a good week to test that. This is a Huntsville team that they get in the first round who has had success at times this season, but it's a team that's giving up 21.3 points per game, and against some of their best opponents, that's where they've struggled to stop those opponents, and they've also struggled to score points, and that's got to be the concern going into this one. Thompson's defense has played extremely well so far this season. They've truly given up less than 10 points per game on the defensive side of the football, 14 or less in every matchup so far this season, even including those first 2 games of the season where they gave up 20-plus in the score column. The defense gave up 14 or less in both of those as well. So defense playing lights out, taking on this Huntsville team who has scored 14 points in a 55-14 loss to Sparkman, scored 7 in a 27-7 loss to Florence. Those are the 2 toughest teams they've played this season, and you saw what happened in both of those. The defense played well for those opponents, and we saw Huntsville struggle to score points. I expect that to be the case this week going up against Thompson's defense, and then you saw what happened with those offenses as well. Sparkman put up 55 against this Huntsville defense. Thompson, they've shown flashes of success against teams that aren't as equipped to handle what they do offensively, and that's what you got to expect this week. You look at that, you've got to be able to capitalize on what you're able to do offensively. A.J. Green, Michael Dujon, 2 running backs that are solid. You've still got to figure out your quarterback situation with Zach Sims and Trent Seaborn. Those 2 guys have both shown different things, both shown promise at times, but there just hasn't been the consistency at that position, and then you still need a receiver to step up and really be that game changer. Those are the 2 areas that you got to find some confidence in, and I expect this to be a big week for them to figure that out, help gain that confidence. Coming off a bye week, they've had some extra time to prepare. They're going to have the game plan ready to go going into this football game, especially when you look at what this defense of Thompson's going to be able to do. This is a Huntsville team that scored 28 or less in 6 of their 10 games this year. I just told you, against their 2 toughest opponents, 14 or less in those two games. So when you look at all of that, Thompson's defense should have a stellar week. They should give up 14 or less in this game, just like they have the rest of the season. There's no reason to expect any different. They honestly should come into this game expecting to post a shutout, but that's up to them. It's all up to the mentality of how they enter, and they've got to have that offense help sustain some drives and keep them off the field defensively for at least a little bit of time throughout this game, keep them fresh and ready to go throughout. I expect that to be the difference. So this defense of Thompson, too talented. You look at what they can do on the offensive side when they've got that confidence there. Now an extra week to prepare. I think you're going to see different Thompson teams start this week because they know what's ahead after this. Likely going to face Vestavia in round 2. That's a rematch. And then in the semifinals, probably going to be another opportunity to face Hoover in the semifinals of the playoffs as well. If not, maybe Hewitt-Trussville. There's so many possibilities ahead, so you know the challenges you're going to face. You've got to be ready to go in this one, and you've got to be perfect in this one to gain that confidence if you're going to go forward with the chance of winning a 4th championship in a row. But it all starts this Friday night for the Thompson Warriors. Going to have to show some improvement offensively, continue to play well defensively, and this is a team that's going to have a chance just like they have the last several years. They're battle-tested. This is what those 2 games to start the season were for. This is what the game against Clay Chalkville was for. And obviously Class 7A Region 3, they face one of the most challenging schedules in the entire country, all for this moment. And they know that, and that will be drilled into their heads. It's probably already been the last week, and now going into this full week of game preparation ahead for the playoffs. So we'll see what Thompson team comes out this week, but expect the Warriors ready to make a statement in the opening round. Pelham Panthers are going to be looking for their first playoff win since the 2006 season when they hit the field. A home game for them this Friday night in the opening round of the playoffs, and they get to host the Northridge Jaguars in a very interesting situation here as head coach Mike Vickery in his first year leading the Pelham Panthers, also in his first year away from Northridge where he spent several years as the head coach. So an interesting rematch here for Vickery against his old squad. Same goes for the other side. His old squad looking to send him out of the playoffs in the first round. That's a big storyline going into this matchup, and you know it's got to be a motivating factor for the Northridge team as well as a motivating factor for Vickery and the Panthers going into this matchup. It's just part of the fun of high school football, of sports in general, to get matchups like this with it all on the line. Your season's on the line. It's the first round of the playoffs. First year at a new school, playing your old school, playing on your new home field. That's just such a cool experience for everybody involved, and you've got 2 good football teams that are going to put up a quality performance in this one as well. You look at what these 2 teams have done so far this season. Northridge sitting at 7-3 overall right now, and it's a team that's really been playing well since early in the season. They've won 7 of their last 9 games, and they're averaging 31.9 points per game, giving up 18.7 points per game. You flip to the other side of that, Pelham season could be a whole lot different with some close games pulled out, but they've had some success this season. Sitting at 5-5, there's a reason they're the 2 seed coming out of the region, and a reason that they are playing on their home field this week despite sitting at 500 overall, and that's because they've played some great football against some really good football teams when it mattered most, and they've played a difficult schedule as well. So this is a team that kind of found their niche, and that's just consistency on both sides of the ball. The offense scoring 23.3 points per game, the defense giving up 21.9 points per game on that side of the ball. So both sides, they're going to give up right around 21 points every game, and they're going to score in the 20s almost every game. That's just been the consistency factor there for the Pelham Panthers. You look at what they've done so far this season. They've given up 35 or less in every game, and they've also scored 35 or less in every game. So you would like to see the offense maybe up that this week, play one of their best games of the season. But regardless, if they can give up less than 35, score into the 20s, that's a recipe for success. That gives you a chance to win this football game. If your defense plays as well as it can, going up against another solid defense, then that's going to be the storyline for me. This defense has to come out ready to make a statement for the Pelham Panthers in this football game. And when they've done that this season, that's when they've been their most successful as well. And the offense is going to have to come out and find some consistent ways to move the football. The Panthers, they enter off a 35-14 loss to Spain Park last week, and didn't want to give away too much going into this matchup, so probably weren't opening up the full playbook in that game. But nonetheless, there were some chances there. There were a ton of passes downfield that were right on the money by Clayton Maines, and the pass was just dropped. I could count 2 or 3 different times where that happened. It would have been a touchdown. Also counted several times where there may have been an underthrow and the defensive back was able to swat it away, but they were very close in the passing game last week, and we know that they can run the football with Maines, but they're going to have to step up and really make a statement up front on the offensive line and balance things out. They're going to have some consistency in the run game to really help open up what they can do in the pass game, but they're not going to be afraid to take chances in this football game, and I think that's a big benefit for them on their home field, and they've got to have a great crowd around them with the opportunity that lies ahead. So that's a challenge to all the Pelham faithful to come out and support the Panthers in this game, because that could really make a difference in a game like this where these two teams are pretty evenly matched. That crowd could really play a role there, especially as you get into the second half or even early in that game to help give them a boost and build off of momentum and confidence early in this game. But these are two teams that are very talented, both going to give it their all in this football game. But Northridge, the way that they've been able to play down the stretch, coming off a 41-14 win against Alma Bryant last week, they've got confidence. They've played in a very challenging region this season, finished as the 3 seed in that difficult region, and they enter with a winning record of 7-3. You got to expect that there's going to be some confidence there for Northridge going into this matchup. So when you look at that, they've probably got a good chance to win this football game. But at the end of the day, Pelham is a talented football team. They've shown what they can do at different times this season. I expect that to be the case again this week. I think these are two teams that are going to play a fantastic football game on Friday night, and both looking to end some playoff winning droughts. Pelham, like I said, dating back to 2006, they're looking for their first playoff win since then, and Northridge, it's been since 2015 since they won a playoff game as well. So both motivated, both hoping to end those droughts, punch their ticket to the second round. Well, our final AHSAA team to touch on, that's the Calera Eagles as they get ready for a road trip, and it's going to be a challenging one. They get a top 5 team in Hillcrest Tuscaloosa on the road to open the playoffs in Hillcrest. They sit at 10-0 after the regular season, so 10 straight wins, and they've been dominant every step of the way so far this season. They've given up 19 or less in 6 straight now, 25 or less in all but a 54-44 win. So they gave up 44 points in that one, but they scored 54 and won that football game. So playing some great football overall on the defensive side of the football, but the offense has also played extremely well, scoring 28 or more in every game and 44 or more in 6 of 10 so far this season. They're averaging 43.7 points per game, giving up 19.4 points per game in a very, very challenging region in the 6A classification. So this is a very good football team. This is a team that can compete for a state championship, but it's no different story for Calera. They faced a similar situation last year in the first round against Spanish Fort and played a heck of a football game, had chances there to pull off the upset after a long, long road trip down south for that opening round game. This year, don't have as far of a road trip to make, and this is a team that they're not scared of this challenge. They're going to be ready to roll, and they're going to roll into this game looking to pull off the upset in the first round. And for Calera, it's simply, to me, when you look at what this matchup's going to feature, it boils down to this offensive line coming out in this game and trying to make a statement, basically saying we want to give our team a chance to win this playoff game, because if this offensive line can play well, that benefits the entire team when you look at what can happen in this game. This is a Calera team. We look at their numbers first, and they're sitting at 4-6 right now. They enter this game off a tough loss to McAdory, 30-9 to end the regular season. They've lost 2 straight games now to end the regular season. After those 2 overtime games, one of which a Briarwood win, went 3 overtimes. The next week, 4 overtimes against Helena. and they bounced back from those 2 games with 2 consecutive losses to end the regular season. But this is a team that's been right in every game, despite that 4-6 record. This is a team that has lost all but 1 game by 17 points or less. They've lost 3 of those 6 games this year by 10 points or less. So they've been in every game against a pretty challenging schedule so far this season, and they're scoring 22.8 points per game, giving up 26.9 points per game. Defense, they're better than that. They know that. They've got the talent to be better than that, and they have to play better than that against a very, very talented offense that they're going to go up against on Friday night in Hillcrest, Tuscaloosa. But to me, for them to compete in this game, the defense can play as well as they want to. Hillcrest is going to score points in this football game. So that means that your offense is going to have to be ready to compete with that. And Preston Stokes didn't play last week. He should be back this week. We'll see if that's the case when they take the field on Friday night. But a quarterback that can make a difference. Not only that, you've got Amari Brundage, you've got Daniel Brown. Those are 2 guys not only physical in between the tackles. If they can find that hole, they've got some speed and they can churn out some big gains throughout this game and continue to push the ball forward, sustain long drives, and then that opens the door, opens the possibility for a guy like Braylon Farrington with a quick slant, with a play down the field to use his speed, use his legs to break away from the defense and make a big-time play. He's also explosive in the return game. So what that falls back on is the offensive line having a successful game, opening up those holes, pushing the defensive front of Hillcrest Tuscaloosa backwards, and opening those holes for Brundage and Brown to have success in the run game, because that's what's going to make the difference. That keeps this game at a pace that you like, that wears down the opponent defensively, and it opens up more space in the passing game for Stokes, for Farrington, and for other guys to make big plays. If they can do that, that's the recipe for success, but it's a lot easier said than done going into this matchup against a team like Hillcrest that's been so successful throughout the season. But I think ultimately if that offensive line shows up to play, who knows if they win because of that, but that could make a huge difference in giving them the chance to compete against one of the best teams in the state this season. You pull off an upset in this one, and ultimately that gives your guys confidence going in to the next week, and you automatically at the end of that become one of the best teams in the state with a chance to compete for a championship, and that's their goal. They don't believe anything less at this point. The Calera Eagles don't, so that's a big thing for them going into this matchup, and ultimately, I think it boils down to the offensive line making a difference, and I think that defense has to be ready to roll. If they want to make a statement, they've made a statement this season. That's the want and will that they have to have going into this playoff matchup. Like I said, a very tall task ahead. It's going to be a challenging game for them, but if they do everything that they're supposed to do in those key categories, then you give yourself the best chance to win this football game, and you can't ask for anything else at the end of the day than that. But it's a great challenge for the Calera Eagles, an exciting opportunity for them, and just look at where this team has come the last 2 years. Head coach Jason Hamlin doing a fantastic job to put them in these situations. Now into the playoffs for the second year in a row in Class 6A after winning 3 combined games for a stretch of play for several years. So this is a team that's completely turned a page. They're going to relish in this opportunity to play one of the best teams in the state, and I think it's going to lead to a lot of fun for both of these teams in a very compelling football game on Friday night. So now we jump into the AISA and the ACSC. We've got the Evangel Lightning, who we're going to start with. Then we'll jump into Cornerstone's opening round game of the 8-man AISA playoffs. But for the Lightning, as they win their semifinal matchup against rival Ezekiel last week, 42-6, they've now punched a ticket to the state championship of the ACSC 8-man play there. And the Lightning been one of the most dominant teams in 8-man football across the country this year. They've won the last several national championships, but they did not win last year's ACSC State Championship. This year, the season's been about getting that opportunity, that opportunity again, and now they've got it as they go into the title game. They took down last year's champion and rival Ezekiel, and throughout this season, it's kind of been a redemption tour for the Lightning, and they've been dominant. the entire way. This is a team that scored 41 or more in every game, and the defense has given up 18 or less in all but one game so far this season. And that's the impressive part to me. You're playing 8-man football. It's pretty automatic that teams are going to score 20 or more points almost every week just because there's so much more opportunity for the offense to have success with less people on the field. But that hasn't been the case against Evangel this year, as they've played just tremendous on the defensive side of the football. And now they get a rematch with Lighthouse, who they dominated 63-28 earlier this year. And Lighthouse, they are coming off a redemption win of their own last week. They lost their last 2 weeks of the regular season, 58-30 and 40-27, before bouncing back with a win last week in the semifinals of the ACSC Championship playoffs. And so you look at that and what they've been able to do. They do bounce back, but to play as poor as they did the 2 weeks before that, that's the concern for me when you go into this matchup. Losing 58-30 and 40-27, your defense wasn't playing well and your offense wasn't playing well. Now you're taking on one of the best teams in the country, and their offense playing lights out and their defense playing lights out. You got to expect Evangel is going to walk away as the state championships and complete their redemption tour with that title on Friday night and go into the national playoffs with a chance at another 8-man national championship. So we'll see how that unfolds, but a great chance for the Lightning to win their title this season. As for the Cornerstone Chargers, they start the AISA 8-man playoffs this Friday night following an up and down regular season. This is a team in Cornerstone that's had some success, but they're the 5 seed in this matchup, which means they have to hit the road to take on 4 seed North River Christian. And the reason why is because they lost to North River 52-48 in the regular season, a game where they were so close in a comeback effort there against North River a few weeks back, but ultimately couldn't complete the comeback. Now a chance at redemption in the first round of the playoffs as they hit the road. And this is a Cornerstone team, started hot. They were 3-0 through their first 3 games. Then they lost 2 in a row. Then they won their next 2, and they got to 5-2, but they've struggled a little bit down the stretch of the season. Ultimately have gone 2-4 in their last 6 games of the season. But Northridge, a similar season for them. They started the season 1-4. They finished the season 3-7, but one of those 3 wins against Cornerstone in a 52-48 win. That said, this is a North River team that's really struggled the last few weeks of the season on both sides of the ball. Cornerstone should be the better team going into this matchup. They should believe that. They should be fueled by the motivation of redemption as well. And if they can do what they need to do, the offense of Cornerstone has kind of backed off a little bit the last few weeks. The defense, though, has improved, and that's got to be the key. If you can come out and play well defensively in this football game and find that offensive rhythm and success that you had in a game plan that worked well against North River the first time around, then Cornerstone going to have a chance to win and punch a ticket to the semifinals of the 8-man playoff. So a big opportunity for the Chargers this week, ultimately going to boil down to, can that offense find the success that it was having throughout the first portion of the season, the middle of the season, and can the defense also play as well as it has in the second half of the season? So kind of matching those two things together from the first and second half of the season and putting it all together into this matchup to open the playoffs. Going to be the ultimate key for the Chargers as they look for a first-round win. Well, that's going to do it for this first-round edition of the Shelby County High School Football Show. It's going to be a busy, busy week and a lot of opportunity ahead for several teams. Our 4 AHSAA teams in the postseason, great chances for them, all going to be able to compete if they play their best game. I don't see anybody getting blown out if they play their best football game of the season. And then beyond that, the AISA and the ACSC, great opportunities for Evangel to win a state championship, Cornerstone to get into the second round in their first year of the 8-man region of the AISA. So a lot of excitement ahead for several teams. Will we have all 4 of our teams from the AHSAA advancing to the second round? Will we only have 1, 2, 3? Who knows? Everybody an opportunity. It's a new season, a fresh start, and they've got a season's worth of work to build off of going in to the opening round of the playoffs this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to see how it unfolds in this opening round, see what we can expect going in to round 2. Plenty of opportunity ahead. Can't wait to see it. This Friday night, we'll have all the coverage for you, including from our game of the week right here at Vincent High School. The Yellow Jackets, a huge opportunity ahead. Can't wait to see if they can capitalize.